The Atlantic is a hungry, grey beast today, its salt-crusted breath clinging to the swaying masts of the Long Wharf. Fish and damp timber as the rhythmic creak of ropes groans against the rising tide. The mist is so thick it swallows the horizon, leaving us isolated on this narrow finger of wood reaching into the North Atlantic. Beneath this fog, the system is breaking. For 18 months, 2,000 redcoats have patrolled these docks, their polished brass buttons a constant, shimmering reminder of our status as a captured city. They watch the crates of tea and the barrels of salt, their eyes scanning for the defiance they know is brewing in the dark corners of the taverns. One soldier for every 7 of us is a math that simply cannot hold. A dockworker wipes brine from his brow, his hands calloused and stained with tar. He watches a young sentry pace the timber, both men shivering in the little ice age chill that turns breath into ghosts. The fog is lifting, but the weight of the crown remains. Who will be the first to break the silence of the harbour? The rhythmic times, clack, clack, clack times of British boots on frozen cobblestones is the heartbeat of Boston City 1770. It is a sound that cuts through the sulphurous tang of sea coal fires and the stench of horse manure. The vibrant, bloody red of their wool coats is a violent scar across the grey and white monotony of this bitter New England winter. This is a legal void where the law has no face. The local magistrates refuse to give the army orders, leaving these armed men in a dangerous no-man's land between authority and desperation. To make matters worse, these soldiers are taking our jobs, moonlighting at the rope walks for pennies just to stay fed. The tension is thermodynamic, the boiler is full, and the rivets are screaming under the pressure of an army that doesn't belong. A woman pulls her shawl tighter, stepping into the slush to avoid a patrol. She sees the hunger in the eyes of a boy soldier who should be home in London, not starving in a colony that hates him. The moon is rising over the State House. How many more sunsets will this occupied city endure? Inside the rope walks at Green's Lane, the air is thick with gritty hemp dust and the suffocating smell of raw sweat and hot tar. Dim candlelight flickers against muscular silhouettes as men twist the great cables that hold the British Empire together. It is backbreaking, honest work, but the atmosphere is poisoned by the presence of the standing army, looking for extra shifts. The system has finally failed the working man. Just days ago, a brawl erupted right here when a worker told a redcoat to clean his outhouse instead of seeking a job. That insult has curdled into a blood feud that ripples through every alleyway in the North End. The soldiers are no longer just an annoyance, they are a direct threat to the bread on every table. A labourer grips a heavy hemp cord, his knuckles white and trembling with a rage that has no legal outlet. He looks at his companions, their faces obscured by the floating dust of their trade. The rot is no longer hidden beneath the floorboards. Can a city survive when its own protectors become its predators? The Green Dragon Tavern glows with an amber hearth glow, a sanctuary of thick pipe smoke and the comforting clink of pewter tankards. Here, the air smells of roasted malt and toasted bread, a rare moment of warmth against the damp Atlantic cold. Men lean in close, their faces illuminated by the flickering fire as they whisper words that would be considered treason in the light of day. This human micro-moment is the calm before the atmospheric shift. Outside, the main guard is stationed directly opposite the seat of our government, a military middle finger to every man drinking in this room. The Sons of Liberty are orchestrating the crowd's arrival, turning private grievances into a collective weapon of defiance. Every swallow of ale fuels the fire of a rebellion that has been simmering for years. A man stares into his beer, watching the reflection of the fire dance on the dark liquid. He knows that once he steps back into the cold, there is no turning back. The tavern door creaks open, letting in a gust of freezing air. Is this the signal we have been waiting for? The slush in the streets has frozen into jagged armor, and the air is sharp enough to cut lungs. We aren't just throwing soft snow anymore. These are oyster shells and ice chunks wrapped in frozen mud. The sensory world is narrowing down to the sting of the wind and the hard, cold weight of a projectile in a desperate hand. The turning point begins with a single nervous sentry at the custom house. He stands alone on the moonlit cobblestones, surrounded by an encroaching shadow of angry citizens. The legal system has vanished, replaced by the raw math of the mob versus the bayonet. The Sons of Liberty are moving through the side streets, funneling the disconnected anger of the docks toward this single, shivering point of contact. A young boy stoops to pick up a piece of ice, his small fingers numb and blue. He doesn't see a soldier. He sees the monster that took his father's wage. The first stone is thrown into the dark. Who will be the first to bleed on the white snow? Suddenly, the night is shattered by the frantic pealing of the church bells, a sound that usually means one thing: fire. Thousands of people pour into the streets with leather fire buckets, their hearts racing as they search for flames in the freezing dark. But there is no smoke, only the chaotic shouting of a crowd that has reached its breaking point. The system has collapsed into total misunderstanding. The British soldiers hear the cries of fire and mistake it for a military command to discharge their muskets into the mass of humanity. In the confusion, the line between a civilian emergency and a military execution vanishes. The bells continue to scream, masking the sounds of hammers cocking and the panicked breathing of young men who are about to change history. Crispus Attucks stands at the front of the mob, a man who escaped slavery only to find himself at the center of a new cage. He doesn't flinch as the steel barrels level at his chest. The bells fall silent for one heartbeat. Will the next sound be a command or a cry for mercy? The air is suddenly thick with the acrid, biting smell of black powder smoke, drifting like a ghost over King Street. On the ground, the pristine white snow is being swallowed by a spreading, dark crimson tide. 5 men lie still on the moonlit cobblestones, their life's breath hitching one last time in the bitter 1770 air. The silence that follows the volley is more terrifying than the shouting that preceded it. The aftermath is a legal and social wreckage. John Adams will soon stand in a courtroom to defend the very men who pulled the triggers, trying to save the concept of law in a city that has lost its mind. The bloody massacre engraving is already being carved into copper plates, a propaganda masterpiece that will hide the truth of the oyster shells and the terror of the centuries. A witness kneels in the slush, touching the warm blood on the cold stone. He looks up at the custom house, its windows dark and indifferent to the slaughter on its doorstep. The dead are being carried away into the fog. Can a nation be born from the blood of a riot? Boston has become a ghost city, a place where the rhythmic times, clack times of boots, has been replaced by the heavy silence of grief and brewing war. The moon hangs over the harbor, illuminating the salt-crusted timber and the red brick buildings that have witnessed the end of an era. The last normal day is over, and the world we knew has been burned away by the flash of a musket. The legacy of this night is hidden in the fog of history, filed away in court records and biased poems. The soldiers will be branded on their thumbs and sent away, but the scar on the American psyche is permanent. We are no longer British subjects living in a colonial town. We are a people waiting for the next spark to ignite a continent. The math of 1 soldier for every 7 citizens has finally been solved with lead. The shadows of 1,770 linger in every alleyway, a reminder of the night the snow turned red. The sun is rising on a new world. Are you ready to fight for what comes next?